Welcome to Midnight Menu Plus One. I'm Ray Canada.
And I'm Margo Moss. Midnight Menu Plus One is a food lifestyle show on the podcast network. It's neworleans.com.
Each week on Midnight Menu Plus One, Margo and I invite a member of New Orleans restaurant and food community to join us, and we invite them to bring along their own guest, a plus one. We never know who the plus one's going to be. Sometimes it's a friend, a neighbor, a family member, a fellow restaurant colleague. Well, our special guest on Midnight Menu Plus One tonight is Chef Anthony Scanio of Emeril's Delmonico. Very excited about that.
And if you're hungry for more Midnight Menu Plus One than we can dish out here, we have all kinds of extra stuff on our website, itsneworleans.com. You can check out our blog, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and we have our Midnight Menu Plus One Facebook page, or you can just Google Midnight Menu Plus One and we come right up.
Midnight Menu Plus One is brought to us tonight by Wayfare. Wayfare is a fabulous restaurant bar on Frette Street, and you know I'm not exaggerating if you are a Facebook friend with me because I went 3 different times. I went and took pictures this week. I couldn't stay away. It was awesome. 2 lunches and a dinner this week. A lot of places to get great food in New Orleans. I know that well. We know that on the show. I've eaten at over 800 New Orleans restaurants, but there's no place doing what Wayfare is doing. Chef Kevin White comes from this fine dining background. He's putting all this training and experience and taste into sandwiches, and they're great.
And I've been to Wayfare one time this week.
All right.
And I really enjoyed it. And they have equally great salads, appetizers, and small plates that you can enjoy at the bar.
Yep, and you know what? It's cheap, too. I mean, you pay the same or less than the price of a sandwich in other places, and again, it's just amazing taste experience.
Plus, for being a Midnight Menu Plus One listener, they'll give you 10% off of your bill at Wayfare.
That's crazy. All you have to do is just say, we sent you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Wayfare is open 7 days from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday until 10 a.m. on weeknights, and it's on that new hip part of Frette Street. Remember to tell them that we sent you from Midnight Menu Plus One to get your discount. Honestly, it's one of my absolute favorite spots. Well, Margo, it's time to introduce our guest, Chef Anthony Scanio. He heads the kitchen at Emeril's Delmonico in the Lower Garden District on St. Charles Avenue. Chef Anthony is a leader in returning to the roots of Creole cooking, homey, approachable, fresh, diverse, utilizes ingredients and techniques that have been long forgotten to reinterpret the dishes for today's tastes, keeping really in the tradition of Chef Emeril's signature New Orleans cuisine. Very, very excited to have with us Chef Anthony. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I think that pretty much sums it up. I'm not sure what else I have to say now.
We're done.
All right,
okay.
Good. All right, perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the beer. I'll be on my way. No. It's that's a really good summation, a good really starting point. And it's like we talk about like Emeril. 20 years ago came out with New Orleans cuisine, where he was from Fall River, Massachusetts, and he brought a lot of outside influences to New Orleans and kind of freshened up our food. And what we do at Delmonico is I have that legacy of New Orleans, but also that legacy of Delmonico, which has been there since 1895, a classic Creole restaurant. It's been witness to so much Creole cuisine, so much New Orleans of New Orleans story. The ghosts there know a lot about this cuisine, a lot, more than I ever will. And so what we try to do at Delmonico is in many ways old New Orleans cuisine. You know? I think that's really fun, a lot of fun, and really interesting and delicious and very approachable. And it's really trying to tell the story of New Orleans on a plate. It's explored. It's a process. It's something we're exploring and working towards more and more every day.
All right.
Well, speaking of stories of New Orleans, I'd like to know a little bit about you. And can you share with us, you are a local boy, correct?
Yes, I am a local boy. That is correct.
And can you share with us maybe your most nostalgic memory of growing up in our area?
Oh, it's as you know, growing up here, and I love. I have this love affair with New Orleans. I'm crazy about New Orleans. As you know, as a teenager, then in my 20s, even my early 30s, it's like New Orleans, and I think that's not atypical. You know,
Yeah.
it's a little bit older now. You come to recognize this is who I am. This is where I come from. This shapes who I am, and I can embrace this and really be part of this discussion on creating this New Orleans we're in right now. But nostalgic, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But the story is my first memory, my earliest memory, and it's actually very important. Earliest memory, I was 2.5 years old, but I recall this. I was in 1973, Mardi Gras. Our family rode in Elks, and I remember we were gypsies, and I remember being in a high chair, and I remember. I didn't know the streets' names at the time, but in retrospect, I can tell what they were. I remember turning from St. Charles onto Canal and just a sea of people. That's my earliest memory.
At 2.5, you rode in
Elks,
the parade
Elks,
in a high chair.
In a high chair, that is correct. That is
How
my earliest
awesome
memory.
is that?
Nice.
But just yesterday, in fact, not specifically in New Orleans, but very much New Orleans, my wife and my two sons, 6 and 8 year old, we went to Clement Harbor, to Waveland, went crabbing. And so that's growing up, we always had a little summer home in Clement Harbor, and so that's a very much New Orleans memory. Going on summer weekends, going to the coast, going to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and you go to the beach there, and it's not really a beautiful beach, and it's quite honestly, you're just as much in Lake Bourne as you are in Mississippi Sound. It's brackish water. It's brown. I thought water was brown growing up, but that's a huge kind of nostalgic thing. Growing up and going with your grandparents, going with your parents to the coast, crabbing, fishing, and so it was just wonderful. Just yesterday, to be able to share that with my family, with my children, and have that sense of continuity, something that I did with my parents, and I know my parents did with their grandparents when we used to go to the coast, and so it's just continuing on that legacy, that part of that continuity. And in fact, just an hour ago, I was sitting out in the backyard eating the crabs we caught. We boiled them boiled them last night, then we refrigerated them, and I was just eating them an hour ago. And so that's very much New Orleans.
Did you eat at Delmonico's before it was Emeril's when you were a kid?
I grew up in Arabi. And so I grew up in Arabi until I was about 11. We didn't get uptown much. Man, this was as far as we got. St. Claude. No, so I never ate at Emeril's, Delmonico pre-Emeril, when the sisters owned it, the LaFranca sisters. Never went there. But I knew restaurants like that. Restaurants that did Creole food, but also did a little Creole Italian, did a little bit of, kind of this little soul food, but wasn't really call it such, but it really was. But that very much is in the New Orleans tradition. That was fine dining, but was very comfortable and approachable. And so, but no, I never went there. Like I say, I grew up in Arabi, and then moved to the New Orleans East, spent time in Metairie, lived uptown for a long time, lived in Italy for about a year, even lived in Pasco-Christian, Mississippi for about a year. But no, so I never went to the old Delmonico, but I certainly understand what kind of restaurant it was and what kind of restaurant it needs to be now.
Well, speaking of Italy, I would like to hear more about that, but I want to know your family history a little bit. Are you what?
You got to be at least half Italian, right?
Half. That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. My father's side is from Sicily. Great grandparents. Late 1800s, 1890 or so. Great grandparents came over. There was a huge influx of Sicilians to New Orleans at the time. That's when the Muffaletta was created, and the French Quarter was really it was a Sicilian slum. That's what Lower French Quarter was. It was known as Little Palermo. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It was tenements, and all the French.
Yeah, I mean the Italian immigrants came to New Orleans earlier than they came to New York. Really, it was first Mafia was here, right? And before El Sal in 1890.
Are you leading
Black
towards
the Black Hand?
Do you want to ask him something about? Are you implying anything?
No.
Well,
I can. It'll come.
No. When I was a young, when I was a young boy, when I was about 9 or 10, my father, Salvatore Scanio.
That's a beautiful name.
Yeah, it's a good name.
It's a great name.
Talk was, we're gonna move to Haiti. We're gonna move to Haiti, and he's gonna accept packages and deliver packages for people. I'm like, what's going on? And I was a kid. I was thinking, I go here to school and I'll miss all my school friends. And then later on, after I grew up, I went, hey, wait, what was going on here? What was going on here? But no. But yeah, this huge Italian or really Sicilian influence here in New Orleans. In fact, it's become so assimilated, sometimes you don't recognize it. Yeah. Growing up, I didn't recognize it. I thought everyone had a fava bean in their wallet for good luck. And, going to St. Joseph's Day altars with my grandmother. And back then, they weren't so much in churches. They'd go to people's homes.
Yeah, tell our listeners. A lot of people don't know about St. Joseph altars. Tell them that's sort of a New Orleans thing. Tell us
It's just the
New Orleans Italians thing.
Yeah, it dates back to Sicily in the Middle Ages. The story is kind of lost in the mist exactly, but there was a famine, and they prayed to Saint Joseph for deliverance from the famine. And it rained fava beans and cannoli from the sky, right? But anyway, the famine was relieved, but they ate the fava beans, dried fava beans. That's how they overcame the famine. And so every year, March 19th, there's in history a story of these wonderful altars of food that they are in honor of St. Joseph and overcoming the famine.
Right.
Now, because it's it's always in Lent, it's kind of like a Lenten break. It's always just seafood, and it's breads, and it's vegetables, and it's cakes, but it's always like a Lenten break, just like St. Patrick's Day is a Lenten break here in New Orleans as well.
Right.
So you Lent, and then you can have a little bit of partying as well. But it's that came with the immigrants here to New Orleans, and I think it's in a few other communities too. I think they do it as well. But this is a long history of the St. Joseph's Day altars.
Right, just elaborately decorated the food, and people invite folks over in their homes and all that. And churches have it now too.
Yeah, churches have it now too, and it's. It's not, at this point. It's not even specifically Italian Americans that do it. It's just the whole community, the Catholic community here does it. But it's it was amazing. I was growing up. It's like my grandmother had like a huge, like a life-size 6-foot fountain in her front yard in Arabi, and I thought this was normal. And then only later on, as an adult, I realized, wait, that's very Italian. That's what Italian would do.
Yeah.
Or in fact. My father grew up in Tremé. Now Tremé, it's very popular now, but a long time ago, it was like a mixed community. A lot of Sicilian Americans there too. Louis Prima was from Tremé. Yeah. The St. Anne Grotto. You familiar with the St. Anne Grotto on Ursuline?
Yeah.
I remember going there as a child, and that was never mentioned to me. But later on, I learned that one of the big statues there was paid for by the Scanios. So that's my own kind of
connection.
It's my own connection. I'm part of this city. The city's part of me. Here I am. And I didn't know it either, but that's what Italians do. They buy statues. So that's.
So when was the first time you left New Orleans?
I lived as a young adolescent in Paris Christian, Mississippi. I went to school there, and it was strange there because right there, kind of like just south of the railroad tracks, so south of I-10, it very much feels like New Orleans. It's still part of the Creole Gulf Coast. It really is. Yeah. But then we had people coming from a little bit further up, and all of a sudden you got some twang going on and country. I'm like, who are these people? But that was I lived. It's not my first experience living out of New Orleans, but it still felt very much like home. After all, I had spent so much time in Waveland and Clement Harbor, so it just seems very normal.
So when did you go off and live in Italy?
That's a long story there. Not a long story, but when my wife and I got married, I was 28. I still wasn't cooking. I didn't start cooking until I was 30. And it's something like, just kind of realized over the next couple of years, like, hey, I think I'm going to cook. And in fact, love, I think I'm going to, I'm close to my English degree at Tulane, but you know what? I think I want to cook, but I'm not dropping out of college. I'm going to go to Delgado for culinary school. So no, it's not. It's just switching focus, and we had already gone to Italy for our honeymoon, and so it just kind of grew from there. It's like let's go to Italy for an extended period, and then I was working at Herb Saint, and we kind of planned this out over the course of 6 months. And at that point, I was making a line cook salary, which is not very much. But my wife was working, 6 days a week, and she was seeing home health patients at night. She's a physical therapist, and she basically bankrolled it so that we could spend almost a year in Italy. And I was in 2004, and it's amazing, hard to believe it was a decade ago. And it's one of those
where in
things.
Italy did you live?
The first month we were in a very small town of just a couple thousand in the Apennines in Le Marche, a town called Cagliari. Small town, went to language school for a month. It's kind of between Urbino and Gubbio, in other words, it's a small town in the mountains, in the hills, hill town. First month there, then we spent
Bet your food was great too, wasn't it?
Food was simple, fantastic. We were kind of adopted by this little local family, Pipo and Adriana, who had this little highway side trattoria, and we would go there a couple times a week, and they would treat us so well. I remember it was March, and white truffles were done, but they still had the called bianchetto truffles, little white truffles. And Pipo and Stilo, the little mutt, went and picked some for us. We had a little white truffle dinner there. And
wait, who's the mutt? What, I missed
the
that
mutt,
part.
the mutt's name was Stilo.
Oh wait, so a dog would dig them up?
The dog digs them
like
up,
they,
sure.
Pigs get them in other places.
Yeah,
in
but
Italy it was dogs.
Dogs, because it's much hard. Try to pull a pig off the truffle's kind of hard. They're big old thing. They're big and stubborn. But a dog's a little easy to pull off that truffle. But Adriana cooked this very simple meal. Just so truffle scraps, a little bit of bruschetta. Then it was like tagliatelle with meat sauce with the truffles shaved over it. All very simple things, but it was just heavenly. And just knowing that people, the husband had gone and picked them for us, it just made it very, very special. And I remember it's like instead of €20 for your whole meal, the truffles are very expensive. It's gonna be 25 today. I go, okay, okay, we can deal with that. But that's one of the wonderful things was just that homemade touch, very, very personal. That sense of hospitality. Even when I'm not doing kind of Italian-inspired food, it's just that sense of hospitality that I love, and that sense of welcome that we try at Delmonico to impart to our guests.
Yeah, a lot of people say that have spent time in Italy say Italy reminds them a lot of New Orleans, and that in terms of that, there's the same sort of like over-the-top hospitality,
that warmth.
Take your
warmth
time,
there. Sure.
Yeah.
But after that, we spent 3 months in Rome, and Rome might be the most beautiful city in the world. New Orleans is beautiful, but in Rome, it's difficult. But Rome spent 2 months on the Amalfi Coast, which is beautiful, south of Naples. But it was it's like 400 steps above the road. That's why you could afford it. It's like literally you're perched in a little tiny apartment.
Anywhere you went, you had to go 400 steps there and 400 steps back.
It's much easier to
just
go
to start your journey.
just to go down. But just perched on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. Lemon trees all surrounding, olives, grapes.
Yeah, the Blue Grotto and all that stuff.
Yes,
so beautiful,
so that was quite the dream. A month in Puglia, a little bit of time in Sicily. It was just the whole thing was just a wonderful dream.
Wow, and this is after you started Herb Saint, but then you had gotten real serious about your cooking.
I was very much serious about cooking. Yeah,
okay.
I'd already cooked a couple other places. Then I cooked at Herb Saint, and that one, working with Donald and with Steve Trujewski. That was a wonderful experience. Learned a lot from those guys about simplicity, about following the ingredients, and then came back to America, and at first we would just spend a little time in Jennifer's hometown, my wife's hometown, which is in an hour and a half southeast of St. Louis, and it was like a big culture shock going from Italy to the Midwest. It was a kind of reverse culture shock.
Must have been tempted not to come home, huh?
There's always time to just don't get on the plane. Just don't get on the plane. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to make it work here. Just don't get on the plane. But I'm glad I came back. I really am. I came back.
We are too.
Came back. I started working in January 2005 at Delmonico. I met someone who worked with at Herb Saint, and that was a good way to get an introduction. And I'm like, okay, I've worked with Donald Link. Let me work for Emeril. Let me work at this classic Creole restaurant. Let me learn a little bit more about New Orleans food. And which is kind of funny because I'm from New Orleans, but you kind of have to be reminded because being that suburban kid from the 70s, there was a lot of Kraft macaroni and cheese and a lot of convenience products. And so part of reclaiming the story of New Orleans, reclaiming ourselves as New Orleanians, is kind of like a rejection of that kind of suburban homogenization that we all went through in the 70s or in the 60s as well. Yep. That's why I'm like, I live here in the city. I bike everywhere. It gives me a certain connection. I smell the jasmine. I smell the honeysuckle, and I think it gives me a better feel for what food makes sense here, for a better sense of place.
Amen.
Well,
it looks like your plus one's here. Why don't you introduce him?
Well, this is Darren Chabert. He's one of my sous chefs at Delmonico, and cooking is such a collaborative process, and we couldn't do anything at Delmonico without our sous chefs, without Darren, without Will, my other sous chef, because it's just you create together. And Darren He's a suburban kid like me from Kenner, but he was born in the first 2 years in St Roch. So
Right.
for today's episode, we'll call him the St Roch kid, and I'll be the Sheikh of Arabi.
St. Roch's the opposite of suburban.
We could come up with a good song with those two.
That's right.
The Sheikh of Arabi.
We could have our own little mafia, the Sheikh of Arabi and the St Roch kid. But really, no. But no, it's that's one to bring Darren, because it's like I say, it's a collaborative process, and we're talking about like at Delmonico, we do a stuffed mrliton, which is like old school grandma New Orleans dish my grandmother used to make, and her mother used to make it, probably pretty similar as well. And you look at the old cookbooks, and it's probably not that far from, it's pretty close to what Leah Chase makes. It's pretty close to what Austin Leslie makes. This is something we all share in common here. This in New Orleans, this stuffed mrliton. So it's like, Darren, how was stuffed mrliton made at your house? And so it's a conversation. And that's how food's created. It's not one person sitting at home, one person in the kitchen in a lab. It's a conversation, or even tonight it's a conversation, and this will help inspire ideas,
Now, thank you, Darren, for joining
Good to be
us. So, when y'all are collaborating and creating in the kitchen, you do it like. And sit around and taste it? Do you all, or do you just discuss it first? And or I mean, I'm sure it evolves in a lot of different ways. But take the mrliton for example. How did that? Did you?
Well, that was we had done it for a special dinner. It was for a beer dinner. And we wanted to play around with it more. And the mrliton is so essential to New Orleans identity. It's like we have the mrliton here. Where else in the South do you have mrliton? You don't. We have it here in New Orleans. Something that makes us very much unique. And the mrliton, they have it throughout the Caribbean and Latin America. And it's like, so it's something we share in common with the greater Creole world, but not the rest of the South.
Describe to our listeners what it is.
It's a gourd. It's a mild gourd. Grows on a vine. Most people's grandfathers had one growing in the backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, there was always mrliton on the side of the house.
Yeah.
And there's a wire rack all the way down the side of the house, and you take something like that for granted and think everybody has it. And you go out there, and there's always a windowsill with a bunch of Creole tomatoes on it, and then maybe a bag of bananas that need to be in a paper bag to ripen up, and then mrlitons. And it's just like the simplest thing, and then you realize you start traveling. You're like, nobody has this.
No, they're going to McDonald's.
Exactly. Yeah, nobody has this.
So
yeah, and he mentioned the mrliton and doing a stuffed mrliton, which was so familiar. It's certainly a holiday item. Oyster stuffing, stuffed mrliton. To start out, you'll have a crab dip, and everything else is. I think every family can, associate with those items.
Yeah, some form of that.
And we try to take it and then let's present it to our guests. It's very humble food for New Orleans, but we're going to do it for our guests, which should be familiar. And if people are in from out of town, this is going to be a treat for them to see another level of, this is very simple New Orleans food, but you're going to get to try it as well. Just like I grew up having it, you grew up having it. And
growing up thinking, everybody has this. But
not so much.
But in Latin America and Latin communities call it chayote. But we never heard chayote till I was like a cook. And then the French-speaking world is called a cristofine. But for whatever reason, mrliton became the New Orleans word, the South Louisiana word, which I've read is like it's a French word for a kazoo.
Kazoo?
Kazoo, yeah. But it
looks nothing like a kazoo.
No, it's a light green gourd, and which is
not the kazoos.
People always say it's mild tasting, which means it's slightly bland.
It is. It's very watery.
There's a sweetness that you can tap into, and with the stuffing, with the accompaniments, you can just kind of bring it all together, and it's delicious.
Nice. Yeah, well, so are there other dishes that you make that are sort of with out-of-town people in mind, or is it always, how do you do that?
We never pitch it to the out-of-town people. We pitch it, what makes sense for New Orleans. And it's a dangerous game to play that. It's a dangerous game to play, pitching it to the out-of-town people, because all of a sudden...
lose your authenticity.
Exactly. Yeah. You are essentially watering it down to make it palatable for our guest. we were definitely very much approachable, and New Orleans food is very approachable.
Right.
But I think I think we need to stand by what we do as New Orleanians, stand by what we do as chefs, and I think for the most part our guests are very, very from out of town are very happy and very pleased with their experience at Delmonico and what they feel, what comes off as authentic New Orleans food. I really try not to say, well, how can I appeal to this Midwestern palate?
I would expect the same traveling elsewhere.
Right.
I want what you have. I want what you eat every day. Give me the real deal.
And then we'll welcome you along for the ride.
Of course.
Sure. Yeah, but you're not saying, okay, I'm gonna make this with you in mind and kind of tone this down to be.
No, that's part of it's part of
right.
traveling and part of experience someone else's life.
It's funny.
Yeah.
This is what we eat.
Funny, you see, we've this time of year, it's getting beautiful soft shell crabs, and sometimes our out of town guests are a little bit baffled by the soft shell crabs.
Right.
Like the guests.
How do I peel it?
Yeah.
How do I peel it? Or the guest wants us peeling and trying to get the crab meat inside
With a fork and knife.
Yes, they don't quite understand. Nevertheless, I mean, what do you do? In that case, you just do what's expected of us as New Orleanians and what the food demands. I'm not going to not serve soft shell crab, but it's just kind of something. It's just funny sometimes. It's the out of town guest who doesn't quite know how to deal with a soft shell crab.
And I think and that the environment there, the culture, is would not make someone feel bad that they didn't know about it. I mean, there's a wonderful mix between celebrating food and history and bringing your own creativity to it.
Sure.
And it's a nice environment, but it's not you don't feel it's welcoming, just like it's a inclusive environment.
Definitely, we'd want it's a elegant dining room, elegant restaurant. There's the waiters are in ties. Nevertheless, we want guests to feel comfortable, and you don't have to sit a certain way. You don't have to, we have boudin balls right now. We've on our menu. We're doing stuff them with cream cheese and jalapeno. It's kind of fun. They're delicious. And it's like, and if the guests would really like to pick them up and put them and eat them that way, I'd really be happy to see that. I go out to the dining room and see guests with a fork and knife attacking a boudin ball, and I'm just like, this is a little bit odd. I almost want to go, hey.
That's like George Costanza with the fork and knife at the candy bar. Remember that episode? It's just there's something wrong about that.
No, so it's like, but I think it's a very welcoming environment. I think it's a very friendly environment. I think our style of service and our staff wants to have fun and wants to welcome you in. I don't.
So now, what's your relationship to the other Emeril's restaurants? Right, like you have the flagship Emeril restaurant or whatever, and then you have NOLA and you have yours, and like what. Is there any sort of central supervision over all of you that makes any creative decisions? Or you're all pretty much your executive chefs are kind of on their own to. Are there limits on you? I mean, how does that work?
I'm the chef de cuisine,
right?
And we can create our own menu. We can create our menu, but there's a culinary director for the whole company.
Okay.
But ultimately, we have a lot. The menu is ours. We have ownership of the menu. If Chef Emeril comes in, tastes something, doesn't like it, it's going off the menu. Obviously, it's done. It's
got veto power.
Obviously, it's simple. But ultimately, we have a great deal of leeway. And it's look, over the course of time at Delmonico, over the course of the 100+ years, they've done a great deal of Creole food. When Emeril first opened it, they were doing Creole food. That for a little while, they lost their way. They were doing there was a chef there doing Asian fusion cuisine.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and so it just doesn't.
When was that?
A while back, before I got there. but then he started doing the dry aging meats, and everybody said, "Oh, it's a steakhouse." But no, it's a great Creole restaurant. And we ourselves at Delmonico we went to our culinary director and went to Chef Emeril and said, "Look." I typed up a manifesto, essentially. Here is our vision of what Creole is and what Creole can be and what we can do at Delmonico. Yeah, and that's...
Was this back in 2005 or this more
No,
recently?
this was later. This was later. And so and still to this day, everything we do kind of.
So you go back to that document sometimes and revisit it? It's kind of like you've memorized it now.
It's ingrained. This is the concept. And the idea is, once again, it's like, okay, at Delmonico and Creole cuisine, we can look back at the history of Creole cuisine and bring things forward. Sometimes it means you have to update them. Sometimes like a crab meat rameck, which is basically a baked crab meat and aioli, you don't have to update it. The old school, old-fashioned version is delicious. Don't change it. Don't try to get fancy. Don't get all chefy on it. Just do it right. Just do it right. Sometimes and so we can update it that way. We can look back at the old world influences that shaped New Orleans. The French, the Spanish, huge influence. The Creole Italians who came later. The African influence, which has always been kind of ignored, but that's a whole other story there. We can bring all these influences in, and finally at Delmonico, what we can do is we can look at Creole cuisine in the context of the greater Creole world. New Orleans is at the bottom of the South, but we're a little different in the South, though. New Orleans is also at the tip of the Caribbean, the tip of the Creole world. Yeah. It's funny. I've been to Puerto Rico a couple times. I'm in Cartagena, Colombia, and as you can see the similarities culturally, architecturally, historically. The connections are there. You just recently just got back a couple weeks ago from Disney World. And say, well, what's that? But we're in Kissimmee, and we're in a predominantly Puerto Rican area. Went to a little Puerto Rican restaurant where we were the only non-Latinos there at the restaurant. The menus were only in Spanish there. And we had there, at the restaurant, I had a pork chop with beans, with red beans and rice.
Nice.
Yeah. We had, for the sauce, I had a little mojo, which basically means vinaigrette, which was just squeezed bottle. Then I had a side of sweet plantains. And I'm thinking, well, wait. At Delmonico right now, we have a dish. We have a dish that's just like that. We have a
Okay, you think it came from Colombia? That's not what I mean. From Puerto Rico, that's not what happened. One of them came on vacation to New Orleans. They ate at Delmonico, and they brought it back there. Now they're claiming it's Puerto Rican.
We're basically we have a rum and
they changed the names.
Rum and Coke glazed pork chop.
Nice.
With a.
Will you have this at Delmonico?
Right now, it's on the menu. Yeah. It's delicious. With red bean and rice congri. Say congri. Nice. Red bean and congri is when the beans and rice are cooked together. Now, the red beans and rice, as we know it here in New Orleans, we're not sure, but probably came over from the Haitian diaspora at the turn of the 19th century, early 1800s. Haitian Revolution, there's a huge
slave revolt. Huh?
There was a slave revolt, Toussaint Louverture, the whole story. About the population of New Orleans doubled with these Haitians in early 1800s. Third, white folks. Third, free people of color. Third, slaves. This re-creolized New Orleans just when it became United States territory. But we probably think our red beans and rice came from Haiti. Likewise, red bean and rice congri, what they do in eastern Cuba, where a lot of the Haitians went as well. You think, Cuba's black beans and rice, but in East Cuba it's red beans and rice to do it together. So we have that. That's that parallel. Then we have a big banana on our menu at Delmonico. I think bananas, New Orleans, we have banana trees all over.
Yeah.
Everyone grew up with a banana tree in their backyard. Right. And of course, they say, well, do you grow up thinking, do you eat those? Like, no, those are cooking bananas.
You cook them, exactly.
But no one ever cooks them. But nevertheless, the story of New Orleans, all the banana trees in our backyards, the story of New Orleans is Samuel Z. Murray and Calumet Fruit Company and United Fruit Company and the Vacato Brothers and Standard Fruit Company. This was the banana capital. This is where all the bananas came to. Right. This is the banana port, and it will be again next year. Chiquita's coming back next year.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah. Chiquita's leaving Gulfport, coming back to New Orleans.
Come on, really?
Yes. So this
is great.
This is a big part of the story of New Orleans. Like at night, I was reading 1911 or so. Samuel Z. Murray. I lived in Z. Murray dorm my freshman year at Tulane. But he and some mercenaries at the Carousel Bar plotted the overthrow of the Honduran government in 1911, and they went down and overthrew the Honduran government. This is where banana republics were created and made. It's not always a pleasant history, but this is our story too, the bananas. So that happened in the
Carousel Bar in the
Monteleone.
Let's go to off the menu. It's a part of our show where we ask you a question that you wouldn't be asked on a job interview. at least not a job that I think either one of you would really want. Or maybe you would be interested in asking a new chef, or, someone working in your kitchen, a crazy question.
Dun, 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 dun.
But before we get to off the menu, I'd like to take a moment to tell y'all about Petite Pet Care.
Okay.
They are a sponsor of our show. And when you're out hopefully having some free time after work and you have a pet at home, or Petite Pet Care can take care of your pets. And you can find them at petitepetcare.com. That's petitcare.com.
With pet in the middle.
Yes, pet.
Oh,
You said petite
Care.
petite. Okay.
That's probably like,
I was
that's
just
probably
making
like
sure
a
y'all.
collar or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe for you, petite, but okay, Petite Pet Care. I'm glad y'all are listening. Thank you. You passed the test.
And we also need to thank our friends at Wayfair for giving our Midnight Menu Plus One listeners 10% off everything on their fantastic Wayfair menu. Plus, they have a 3-hour happy hour every day from 4 to 7. And Chef Kevin White's a friend of our show. He's put fine dining into a sandwich, and the bartenders put all kinds of great stuff into the cocktails, too.
Which is a cool place, yeah.
Yeah, we love that place. You guys like that place?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody does. So we're ready, Margo.
Okay, so now we're going to off the menu. Okay, Chef Anthony, if you were going to a deserted island and you could only bring one 8-track, one 45, and one LP, what would they be?
I feel like this has probably happened to him before, too. He's had so many adventures, but yeah.
Oh, my goodness. One 8-track, one LP, and I'm sorry?
A 45.
45.
We're not making it up to discs and
I
MP3s.
understand. I still, in my head, I hear certain songs with the 8-track skipping a certain song. I still hear that.
Indicata da Vida.
No. I was actually Heartbreaker, Led Zeppelin 2.
Oh, yeah.
On 8-track,
on
awesome.
8-track, yes, I had my father's copy. I remember I had that. Even went to college in the late 80s with an 8-track player with a cassette adapter. That's as far as I got. But, oh my goodness.
Long play.
Do y'all play music while you're thinking about it? Do you play music in the kitchen?
We do not play music in the kitchen. I hum music in my head. I sing music. I tap drums, and they really prefer what I don't sing.
Maybe if you played music, you wouldn't.
There's a lot of easy answers, but I think one LP, Kind of Blue. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that today, Miles Davis, Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Bill Evans, Jimmy Cobb, and Paul Chambers. I mean, it's an easy one, but it's like just hearing Miles Davis play the trumpet with the hum and mute. It just hits you in the heart, soul. It's just one of the most beautiful sounds in the world. Really is. What's that got to do with food? How does that influence my food? It doesn't. I mean, I listen to a lot of Professor Longhair and James Booker, and I think that influences the food because that's the Spanish tinge, the Afro-Caribbean in our music, and we're trying to express that in the food as well. But in terms of Desert Island, Kind of Blue. Oh my God. It changes every few years. Right now, maybe a 45. Something by Arsenio Rodriguez. He was a Cuban composer and guitarist, blind guy. But he pretty much created the son montuno, which created later on salsa. But it was a son montuno. It was much more rougher, harsh, but very majestic. And something by him.
Okay.
I just the clave. The clave, just the 3 against the 2. It's his rhythm, Afro-Cuban rhythm. Bop. In Cuba, they played on the clave, or they played on the bass.
Huh.
In New Orleans, you played on the second It's a second line beat. Da,
Uh-huh.
da, 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 da. You hear it in Professor Longhair.
Is
Dun,
that
Chipatina.
that's
Dun,
kind
dun,
of
dun,
pleasing
dun,
to hear you do that? But I would imagine every night if you were humming and snapping.
Other
it
night I
could
did
be
it on some little tin cups, and it really irritated Darren. She's like, Darren's like, "Oh, dude, just stop that right now."
That never happened.
Wow. Well, that was a very sophisticated answer.
I
for
don't know
what
about
seemed
that.
Like, yeah, that's
so
interesting.
something about Arsenio Rodriguez,
Okay.
and then Miles Davis kind of blew. And then do I need one more? Is that
No,
good
no,
enough?
you got
got it.
8-track, you got LP and 45.
All right.
Excellent.
Yeah, we had
Thank you.
2 in there too. Wow,
See,
that's
would
quite
you want a
eclectic.
job?
That
Would
was
you?
quite a gumbo of
it wasn't.
songs. Yeah.
We learned a little something about you. I wasn't as wasn't horrifying. I hope.
No.
Well, that was a
Okay,
very creative
now
question. My
it's
question
Darren's
for Darren.
question.
Yeah, mine's a lot easier.
Good.
Yeah, just one person living alive in the world today that you'd like to have a meal with, one-on-one.
Wow.
Only one though.
Anyone in the world.
Anyone
But-
in the world that's
Alive.
So
still
you're
alive.
saying they have to be alive? Okay.
They got to be alive. I guess they have to speak one of the languages you speak.
They don't. Have, I mean, if you
Like
don't
Putin. You
want to
can really
speak,
do Putin if you wanted to have Putin. But does he really speak English? I don't think he probably does.
Wow.
Not much. I don't know. Yeah,
I
he was in the
speak
KGB. He must.
I speak
yeah.
Russian, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
that's so you're fine.
Jesus, that's a big question.
Gorbachev.
Yeah. Wow, that's a tough one. You said it was easier.
yeah, I know. I didn't say it was easier. He said
The
it was
whole
easier.
world, one person.
There's not much at stake here, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, no one's going to have to hold you to it. It's okay. We don't have a coupon for you at the end of this or anything.
Ray sets it up like a blind date.
Yeah,
And here he is.
Behind.
you're good.
Darren, this is your life.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a bold answer. I like that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Bill Murray.
All right. What are you going to talk about?
He's hysterical. I was actually, and it's
Loogie
funny.
Patrol?
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching Groundhog's Day the other day. Which is always, like one of those, like the movie that comes on that you can never like.
Yep.
I'll watch this again. And you do, and then it's like kind of a repeat of a movie inside of a movie.
Yeah.
So Bill Murray.
Very nostalgic.
Yeah.
like Revenge of the Nerds, you just
He
can't-
seems like a cool guy to hang out with, and
Nice.
he's always a cool guy with fans. So
All right. If you're going to
All
cook for the meal or if you're going to prepare the food ahead of time, what are you going to feed him?
I'm not cooking.
Yeah.
We're going out to eat. We're gonna go out to eat.
Anthony's going to cook for him.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, it's a day off. I'm hanging out with Bill Murray. That'd be like a double-edged sword. It's like you get to hang out with him and you're gonna work.
Well, I mean, that leads to an interesting question, though. You guys probably sort of live this in a way all the time. You got lots of famous people that come through, I'm sure, no? So and they want to, and then, they want to meet the chef. So what people have you met?
They don't
at
want
the
to meet
restaurant?
the chef.
Really?
No?
They want to be just.
Sometimes we want to meet them.
They,
Robert De Niro.
I just want to be left alone. De Niro came in. I would have liked to have met De Niro. De Niro, that was.
You were too busy to talk to De Niro?
He
Yeah, I
seemed
was
really
gonna.
cool and really coy, and he was doing his thing.
You didn't want to
but
mess
I-
with
You're being
respect
respectful.
But for the most
Oh.
part, I'm like,
Yeah.
don't mess with this.
Who's
going to
get upset that the chefs came out to say hi, though? I mean, that's crazy.
I remember I was actually going to go out to say hello to De Niro, and he had left already. But
Oh.
that's really the only one. Like
That was a busy night too.
It was.
Oh.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But for the most part, New Orleans are good about this, and I'm good about this too. It's like,
Yeah.
don't mess with them, don't screw with them. Let them enjoy the meal. Let them just be a diner.
Right.
None of this "I'm your biggest fan" stuff. Like I got all your regulars.
Yeah, I'd almost rather. Hey, guess who I saw?
Yeah.
What did you say? I didn't say anything. Hey, guess who I saw?
Yeah.
Or if you go out, just like,
That's about
thank
it.
you for coming
Yeah.
in. Pleasure meeting you. Thank you. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Nothing.
Now, have
know.
you had any that just like burst into the kitchen and want a tour and stuff too? What kind of? Do you have any celebrities like that?
No, not so much.
No,
No.
never.
I would say for the most part, generally they want to come in, they want to have their spot,
Yeah.
they want to do their dinner, and that's the extent of it. They're in.
They want a certain amount of privacy, and they just
Exactly.
want to enjoy their meal and just without being, crowded.
Did they make reservations or ask would that and
We
to me that would
generally know
make a
they're coming.
difference.
Yeah, I don't. It's not a big history at Delmonico as far as I know of celebrities coming in under aliases or funny names.
He made Robert De Niro wait for his table for 2 hours.
Yeah, not a smart move.
No, no.
All right, Darren, I want to know a little bit about where you came from before you were working at Delmonico.
Oh, wow.
What your culinary?
Not at all affiliated with food. I was in the.
Was your first job cooking? Was it Delmonico?
No, I mean,
Oh.
I played around in kitchens in high school, but was nothing,
First sort of serious
nothing
job.
as a serious
Wow.
culinary career.
And you're sous chef now. That's
and I-
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in the Army for 13 years, and I wanted to cook, and I'm like, how much longer can I wait to pursue this? Because there's guys right out of high school doing this and hack away at it, and it's their life. So I had to make a move, and it was a quick decision for me because it was a no-brainer. I thought about it for so long and put it away, and then acted upon it, and I went and applied at one place at GW Fins, and my next stop was Emeril's Delmonico, and I went in, and the chef.
You started as a line chef, or?
Yeah, I started on fry, which is the if you're not on fry and you're any lower, you're going to be washing dishes. So they went in. He gave me the time to sit down and actually interview me, and he said, "Can you start on Wednesday?" And I lit up like a light bulb. I was like, "Really? You're going to let me come in and work here?"
What year was this?
This was 2008.
Yeah, I was a sous chef at that time.
Yep.
But
And
I think
yeah, it was wonderful. It was like I'm walking out the kitchen, and it was you and a former sous chef, Isaac Toops. And
Oh, wow. Yeah, we've had him on the show, too. We
Isaac
love him.
Toops,
He's
yeah.
a wild man.
Great,
Did a bunch of knives kicks,
Yeah.
knife tricks for
Yeah,
us,
he's a
yeah.
trip.
Almost the only time I feared for my
Tomahawk
life.
man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
On the show, yeah.
yeah, and I'm like walking out, and I'm like, asking people in the kitchen, what do I need? They're like, get a spoon, get a knife. I'm like, spoon, knife. Okay, got it. And then just get back in the kitchen and then figure out a new career. And it clicked immediately.
So you didn't go to culinary school?
No.
Wow. So you just
No,
did it all on
it's
the
a-
job.
It's a huge teaching kitchen at
Oh, yeah.
Delmonico.
Oh.
So, which is kind of wonderful because you can go I'm a testament of it. You can go the whole route and learn in-house. And now we have treats.
Did you bring some of your homemade liquor too?
Yeah, we have
course I
treats
did.
here.
Oh,
Cool.
I
the
had
first
to-
thing I pulled out of here was the
It'd be a shame.
limoncello too. Oh my
It'd be a
gosh,
shame not
my
to.
favorite stuff on the planet.
limoncello is like revenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best served cold. I'm not sure what that means, but
Yeah, there we
definitely
go.
Wow.
limoncello cold.
Can you tell me about these?
That's right. I heard about this, that you make your own liquors too. That's amazing. This
yeah.
This is a new
No,
hobby for you? You've been doing it for a while?
started doing that basically 2007. Since I've been a sous chef, started doing that, and that's developed over the course of the years. And we have a whole bunch on the menu. Have a few things off the menu as well, and that's inspired by my time in Italy. Whereas you can still go to a corner grocery and you could buy neutral spirits because it's still part of the culture is for people to make liqueurs.
Nice.
And funny thing is, learning more about what New Orleans cuisine is and about Creole cuisine is, the old Creole cookbooks, like the Times-Picayune cookbook from 1902, pretty much definitive, there's a quote that says like, every Creole makes his own liqueurs. so there was that part, that was that
Wow.
story, there was that here in New Orleans at one point where you'd have the house-made liqueurs. And so this is part of our culture too, part of our story too. But so we're kind of bringing that back. So
And are these? Can you tell seven elixirs of the seven powers?
yes.
What a great name.
It is a great name, and
That's kind of where it started, huh?
well, it started making limoncello first, but I'd like to tell a story of my grandma. I tell a story. My grandmother, Alice Teresa Guerrera Scanio. I found a picture. In our house of her mother, Maria Incarnato, and on the back was the recipe for seven powers. That's the story I like to tell, but it's not the truth. That really didn't happen like that. But that's the spirit that we're trying to get at. But actually, one of my trips, one trip to Italy after I was living
The spirit
there.
of deceit? What?
Yeah. But at the trip, one of our trips to Italy, after I lived there, bought this big old 10 kilo book of Sicilian cuisine, and it had
10-kilo book.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah,
22 pounds.
it was like a $120 book. I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know the price when I bought it. I'm like, oh okay, go for it. But there was a recipe for the Elixir dei Sette Potenti, Elixir of the 7 powers. But there was just listed ingredients, didn't give ratios or proportions, which is very typical of old school cookbooks. Or there's no ratios, just list of ingredients. So basically, we over the course of a couple of trials, we created our own ratios for the Elixir of the 7 powers. And I think 7 is one of those numbers. It's like, is it archetypal? It goes back to the Bible. Earth was created in 7 days.
Perfection.
Exactly. It's
Seven's perfection. Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of the liqueurs were elixirs. They were like alchemy. They were like, created for your health. But now they're just fun.
Now, do you recommend, do people pair this with food, or is it good in between, or just to enjoy?
I think it's a great way to end your meal at Delmonico, is with a digestivo. I mean, limoncello isn't so much a digestivo. It's just fun.
Yeah,
it's just fun. But
we have a problem with limoncello in my household, though. I can't open a bottle without finishing it. So as soon as I open it, I have to finish it. That's a lot of limoncello. Yeah,
sounds like a lot of fun.
I got 3 bottles in my freezer.
Then I'm dragging the next morning.
I bet. But no, and over the course of time, we do all sorts of liqueurs. We do a strawberry drop when bunches of strawberries are available. We do a Ruclino, which you have a sample of here, which is an arugula liqueur. We use some beautiful local arugula, and that's inspired to do this on the island of Ischia in the Gulf of Naples. Do a Ruclino, and it's got arugula. It's got a little bit of orange and lemon, and a little bit of vanilla.
Smells fantastic.
And it doesn't taste like a salad. It's just like a little herbalness at the end.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites for sure.
It's
this is so tasty.
And one of our latest ones developed now was which just in the past month, doing a Delmonico Comfort.
Nice.
Southern Comfort was created late 19th century in New Orleans by a bartender. He took some bourbon and he infused it with a bunch of with vanilla and peaches and citrus, and that's where Southern Comfort came from. At some point, it changed into an industrial product with neutral spirits and artificial flavors.
Huh.
Or maybe not. But so this is our version here.
So now, do you distill these in the kitchen?
No, these aren't distilled. These are we just take neutral spirits.
Oh, got it. Okay, so you're just infusing flavors.
Infusing flavors.
Okay,
that's
gotcha.
all it is.
That's
and
great. So you can do all that right in the kitchen.
It's so complex, though. How do you say this? This Ruclino?
Ruclino.
Ruclino.
Yeah, rucola is Italian. Arugula. One of the Italian words for arugula. So it's rucola means little arugula.
Oh, nice.
It has so many different flavors, and
so the cool thing is any of us can learn to do this really with some practice.
This is something a grandmother. This is a grandmother project at home in Italy. Grandmothers do this. This is not complicated molecular gastronomy. It doesn't require any centrifuges.
You're not making these in cigar boxes.
No. This is old fashioned. Taking neutral spirits and then just letting it take time with ingredients. Infusing, macerating, just mellowing out, and
like a story in history.
Exactly.
It's like a little story in a glass.
So, Margo, I'm devastated by the hand gestures being offered by Grant, because it means we're out of time.
Oh no!
Yeah, I think he's been doing that frantically for several minutes now, but I've been ignoring it. But I think we do have to end this. But the only consolation is then I get to eat this amazing.
Well, yes.
Plate
Let's just hear about.
Describe that a little bit for us, and then we'll close.
The best way to finish a meal at Delmonico is with some of our house-made liqueurs. But the best way to begin your meal at Delmonico is with some of our house-made charcuterie, our salumi.
Oh, yeah.
Was very.
Is this
proud
where
of
Isaac
that.
learned the art?
Isaac was there. We're all doing it together. It was a collaborative process. One person would have one idea, one person would have another idea. A lot of it was inspired by my time in Italy, or it's like the chorizo, which is very Spanish. But chorizo, everywhere the Spanish went, there's a version of chorizo. We have it here called chorizo. That's our version of chorizo here. So, but no, it's Isaac helped. We all learned it together at Delmonico. So this is very proud of our charcuterie. Very proud of that. It's a great way to begin your meal. Nice cured, salty meats with some nice pickled vegetables, slightly vinegary. Nothing is better than to open up your palate and get your mouth ready for a whole bunch more food than something a little salty, a little bit vinegary. And that's the way to do it at Delmonico. Start with your charcuterie or your salumi, right? Your charcuterie. You go into maybe a Creole stuffed mrliton, maybe some drum meuniere. Have chocolate ice cream d'auberge cake, and then finish off with one of our liqueurs. And then you have yourself a wonderful evening.
Anybody that's listening to this that lives within about 300 miles of New Orleans that isn't going there in the next week needs to get their head checked. That's that description was I can't wait. Our special guest tonight on Midnight Menu Plus One was the Sheikh of Arabi and the St Roch Kid, better known to the rest of the world as Anthony Scanio and Darren Chabert. Both of Emeril's Delmonico. Thank you so much. You can find out more about Emeril's Delmonico by following the links on our site on itsneworleans.com.
And thank y'all so much for coming in. I know your time is really precious, and we really appreciate you spending the evening with us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
We also need to thank Wayfair on Ferret Street to get our 10% discount off of everything on the menu, and you got to tell them that you heard it on Midnight Menu Plus One. That would really be awesome. And also Petite Pet Care, petitepetcare.com, and Monkey Hill Bar on Magazine Street.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night.
Midnight Menu Plus One is produced by Grant Morris, Margo Moss, and Ray Canata. Our technical producer is Chris Kehoe. Our director of everything else is Mary Ross. Thanks to our sponsors who made tonight's show possible, Wayfair on Ferret Street. As a reward for getting all the way through to the end of the show, you get 10% off your tab when you tell your server, Ray or Margo from Midnight Menu Plus One sent you. Also, Petite Pet Care for loving care when you're not there. Find those guys at petitepetcare.com. If you'd like to be a sponsor of Midnight Menu Plus One, get in touch with us on our website at itsneworleans.com or just email sales@itsneworleans.com. If you'd like to be a guest or suggest a guest for Midnight Menu Plus One, you can do that on our website too. You can find photos from tonight's show, check out our blog, and all sorts of other great stuff on itsneworleans.com, including our other shows. Out to Lunch, Happy Hour, Vietnola, True to the Game, and Mindset. You can hook up with Margo and Ray anytime by following Midnight Menu Plus One on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. The awesome audio quality of the show is brought to us in part by Chris Kehoe's Magic, and the rest of it is done by PreSonus Audio. More information about all the wonderful sound recording equipment that PreSonus makes is at their website, presonus.com. Midnight Menu Plus One is a production of INO Broadcasting. For itsneworleans.com, for all of us here at Midnight Menu Plus One, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week around the New Orleans podcast dining table. Ray Canata and Margo Moss will be back then. Good night.
You know Labor Day signals the unofficial end of summer, but not the end of your outdoor projects. Lowe's helps you do it right and helps you save with Labor Day deals throughout the store. Shop now and get 2 bags of Stay Green potting mix for $12. And keep your lawn looking neat and trim with a Craftsman 2-cycle 17-inch gas string trimmer, now $20 off at just $119. Whatever's still on your to-do list this Labor Day, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 8/28. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii, U.S. only.